He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Hello, and welcome once again to Bat Minute Forever, the podcast where we can't sleep, we haven't even eaten, because we've been talking so much about Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever, 1 minute at a time. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
And I am your other host, John Parker, and I am here to promise to you that this show will take in one ward per season.
And that ward is, he doesn't know it yet, but it's happening, Jack Harvey, our current guest.
For a weird bit of trivia, Ward is my mother's maiden name.
Oh, perfect.
Oh my God.
It's like destiny.
So then you're like Jack
fate.
Harvey, like Harvey Dent. Ward, your mother's maiden name, like Ward. And then Burt Ward, of course, was the fucking original Robin on screen and stuff.
Batman's in your blood.
Yep.
We're here today to talk about minute 42. Minute 42 begins with the sort of the ending of the last minute, still the ramifications of the death of the Graysons ringing throughout the movie. And it ends a minute later with Dick Grayson saying, "See ya."
Yeah, with a grown man deciding to run away.
Well, it's more like, oh, I gotta go off and get a job, I guess, now. 'Cause I got my 401k to worry about here. Like, I've got my pensions and payments to get in. But one thing I will note as well from just as we had the last remnants of the end of the last minute, is there's another little thing in the novelization which I like, but again, it's like it's not necessary either, really. They switch from the viewpoint of Dick to Bruce, and that Dick looks down and it mentions like he heard this absolutely like anguished, horrified screaming. And then at the last second, he realized it was actually coming from him because it had just come out of his body, like involuntarily and stuff. Once he saw
I love that.
And then when it cuts to Bruce's point of view, he hears the scream as well, and he's like, "That's a familiar scream. That's me. I'm doing that. That's the scream I did when my parents died." And then he realizes, like, "Wait, no, that's not me. That's somebody else." And he looks up and sees Dick and stuff. And I thought that was a nice parallel where, like, Bruce is like, "I recognize that. That's my own voice."
Yeah, that's cool. How would they portray it, though? How would they get that across in the film? Because he's not got anyone to speak to about that.
I don't know.
I mean, it could be done, but you could imagine a lot of ways how they could try and do that and screw it up in a way where it just looks cheesy, or tasteless.
Yeah, because that would work really well in like a comic and things like that.
Yeah. But yeah, just thought that was a nice little addition. But at the same time, though, that would take away from like the eerie, serene, morose silence that kind of hits after, like, this devastation hits, and then there's just nobody's saying anything. It's just like everyone's just kind of letting it sit with them for a while.
Yeah, I prefer that. It doesn't seem realistic in a way. It seems kind of fantastical, but in a way that works. It's kind of like it's maybe how Dick is viewing the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe people are talking and running around things, but that's irrelevant to him.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
focusing on this one thing.
Well, I imagine, like, within the circus there's probably a lot of like, whoa, like there's tons of noise going on, but he ain't hearing any of it because he's just, it's kind of he's in his own head in that moment. But then, of course, like, from like, oh, nice, somber, serene, kind of sad moment. And then next note is just like, what the hell are these horses doing outside the mansion?
Yeah,
these giant...
It's a rare daytime view of the mansion.
Yeah. But this is like, the two horses mounting these rocks, and there's no way around it. It's like your eyes automatically go for the crotch. Like
what it actually is that Bruce cleared that area because he was gonna get the two big steel heads from the front cover of The Division Bell by Pink Floyd, but unfortunately he was outbid at the last minute, and he was like, "What am I gonna have to put here instead?" So he just, he went down, and just got some big horses made out of plaster of Paris, and he was like, "They'll do until the Division Bell heads come on sale again."
Yeah, he's just sitting like, I think he sent Alfred down to the auction, like, "Oh, Master Bruce, the division bell has gone." Like, oh, but what else is there, Alfred? Like, "There appears to be two horses screwing a rock or something." So, like,
and if you look as well, there's a guy wrangling them.
yeah.
So there's a semi-naked man wrestling with the horse.
You could take it as been like, oh, maybe this is placed there for a reason, in that, like, well, Bruce was a wild, untamed animal, been wrangled by Alfred within Wayne Manor.
That's Alfred. That's his physique.
But he's holding back, like, this, managed to save this young boy from his own anger and, helped him focus it.
And now it's Bruce's turn to do the same.
Yeah, it's like, well, there's now there's two statues. Like, there's both of them outside. And it's, again, Two-Face, the whole thing. There's loads of this sort of stuff going throughout the whole movie of, like, things that seem like that's kind of making parallels, but you don't know how well through they thought out any of them.
Well, this shot of the mansion in the daytime, to me, this always looks like he's in England. Like, Bruce commutes from England every day.
To be honest, though, isn't that because, I don't know whether they did with this one, but, like, a lot of the time, that whenever there's a manor, like whether it's Wayne Manor or whether it's Professor Xavier's school, a lot of the time they film that on location at various manor houses in England.
The first movie is Nebworth House, so it's in Nebworth. But ironically, this is in Long Island, I believe.
Yeah, it doesn't look a thing like it would be there to me. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Although, that's one thing, because in the commentary, Joel Schumacher's talking about, like, oh, yeah, it was, lovely, like, a really, really nice day. Like, oh, we got this location for a couple of days, and we're shooting out in Long Island, and, everything was like, oh, the lighting was just perfect. We're like, oh, thank God, like, we can get this shot is going to look amazing. And then they just realized, like, nobody brought Dick Grayson's bike. And they're just like, they'd spent all this time and effort giving him, like, a customized bike. And then on the day of shooting, they're just like, did anyone put it in the van?
Oh.
No. So they literally had to scramble and just get a bike on set just to be like, just give him anything. Just freaking give him a bike. So,
just CGI it these days.
Yeah. But so this is just, I think they might have had a more, like, they had more in mind for, like, Dick Grayson's ride. And then they're just like, we don't have it. Like, it's physically not here. So, like, I think the producer had to, like, just make a couple of phone calls and get some bike to appear on set within the hour kind of thing.
Well, he does arrive via motorcycle. James Hurley of Twin Peaks here, the rebel that he is.
Oh man, that's opened up a schism for, like, continued jokes about James Hurley throughout the rest of the show now.
He is James Hurley. Look at him. Same vibes.
Yeah, but maybe that's the thing. Like, it was a thing throughout the 90s where, like, people didn't realize that, like, people used to think bikers were really cool, and now in the 90s people realized that they were kind of lame. So it's like they're still trying to put, like, oh yeah, this is a cool guy, right? They're like, nah, like, now you remind me of James Hurley. Like, he wasn't a cool character.
It all works for the character though, because a lot of people that sort of like Robin's sort of like bad boy attitude in this film is a bit of a departure from traditional Robin from, like, the comics and that, but. Burt Ward, when he was Robin in the 60s series, he was always sort of like, oh boy, I sure wish I could get rid of Bruce for a couple of hours so I can go and hang around with all these hippie chicks or something like that. And it's kind of like, it's just kind of like a slightly more immediate extrapolation of that kind of character trait where it's just like, screw you, man, I'm going to blow this joint,
And then when you read the behind the scenes stuff, you realise Burt Ward probably was going and hanging out with those hippie chicks.
Oh yes, absolutely, yeah, definitely. More than hanging out is what I hear.
Oh yeah, it's disturbing when you read something like that.
But that's the thing, though. Like, we've made a lot of jokes, though, throughout this season, and we'll doubtlessly continue to do so, about the fact that, like, Chris O'Donnell is very, very old looking. Like, not very old looking. He's like 25 or 26 here.
Yeah, but the character's clearly under 18.
Well, that's the thing, though, because I was looking up, like, well, what age do you have to be to legally drive your own motorbike? And it's like, yeah, you can get it at 16. So we're taking him in as 16. And then I was looking into, like, the foster care system. They're like, oh, they'd kick you out at 16. So it's like, he is so on this razor wire of, like, if they waited a couple of weeks, he could have just been a fully functional adult, basically. Like, even within the story, it was sounding like, now I'm just wondering, how recent is this motorbike he has? Because, like, did he just get this for his birthday last week? Like, how, it kind of gives you the idea that he's, like, a seasoned biker guy.
Yeah.
But again, he would only be able to legally drive it within the last year. And then, it just like, you could also add that in as to why, like, this is why Bruce is taking him in, is because the foster care system just wouldn't have time for him. It's like, oh, it's 16-year-olds. Yeah, give him a month. Like, he'll just be thrown out into the world again.
I mean,
Maybe.
you could argue that he's grown up in like a circus family, and circus folks are generally kind of like on the fringes of society. They're always moving around and stuff like that. So it's not unreasonable that he could have, they could have introduced him to motorcycle riding earlier in life than he really should have been, and they taught him about it and all this kind of stuff. You know what the carnies are like.
He's been on this since he was 6.
Yeah, circus folk, nomads, Any hands. But speaking of hands, we get a warm handshake between Bruce Wayne and Commissioner Gordon here. Pat Hingle's big scene in the movie. He actually gets to do some stuff.
Bruce in the most 90s attire I've seen for a while.
Oh, yeah. I will say that this was what I alluded to earlier, John, where I was like, oh, because some content I knew you would enjoy. Because I've been poking around and I found an interview with Pat Hingle from 1995. Talking about the release of Batman Forever. And it's like, it goes into everything. It's like a whole big long interview, but a couple of choice quotes in just what he was saying in the lead up to this coming out. A lot of it's kind of confirming stuff we've been saying already. And that's actually another kind of aspect that adds into this scene as well. Pat Hingle says that he had never seen anything to do with Batman before he was offered Commissioner Gordon back in '89. But the reason he was interested in it is because he was like friends and neighbors with Burgess Meredith. And so he's like, oh, I know. Yeah, Batman. Oh, Burgess was in that. Like, that'll be fun. And then they gave him the script for '89. And there's a whole big sequence I think we talked about back in the day where, like, a deleted sequence where you had the Wayne murders, and then there was a sequence with Commissioner Gordon taking in Bruce Wayne, looking after him for a little bit, and being the first on site and all this kind of stuff. And that picture of Bruce in the newspaper is him. It was supposed to be him holding on to Commissioner Gordon's leg and stuff. And he was like, oh, yeah, this was great. And it was like throughout the rest of the script, there's always this vibe between Gordon and Bruce that, like, he knew something was up with him and stuff like that. And there's this real connection between the two characters. And then he says, like, and this interview, so I'm like, yeah, Robin was there too. There was all this. And then he's like, then Jack Nicholson got cast. And at that point, they started putting more and more Joker stuff in. And that all got cut out because Jack Nicholson was playing the Joker, basically. Because they wanted to they wanted to justify that friggin' $52 million paycheck or whatever. So, but then he mentions, like, oh, so the next movie I get the script, and I come back to Tim Burton, I'm like, I'm not even in this. Like, what the hell's going on? And Tim was just like, oh, don't worry, we'll get something for you to do. But then he said he was very happy when he read Batman Forever because he had more to do. And that
he's one of the things that improves as the series goes on, actually, the Gordon representation.
Well, this movie, maybe, but I don't know the next movie. He's just kind of a goofball hanging about in the background. Right? But that adds into this idea, though, that, like, there's in the original Bachelor draft, like, there's a scene in the police station afterwards where Bruce is like, I'm going to take the boy in. And Commissioner Gordon's like, what, Bruce Wayne, you're taking in this kid. What do you know about any of this? And Bruce is like, oh, more than you think. But this would make more sense, like, of course, Gordon would be like going, it's almost like he's passing the torch to Bruce. He's like, if they have this relationship, like, well, Bruce, I was there for you when your parents died. I know that you know all about this. So him coming to Bruce and been like, thank you for taking him in. I know that you know what it's like and stuff, because the two of us have been there together and stuff. So now it's kind of retroactively like, much as I love '89, it's like, it would have been nice if they had that scene just to confirm this thing later on. Is like, this is the ongoing relationship between Gordon and Bruce. A couple other choice quotes from that Pat Hingle interview. This is the one I thought that you would really like, John.
Oh, yeah.
Because he says, now they're doing Batman Forever, and I think Val Kilmer is going to be a very, very good guy for the role. He's a dandy actor, too. You put either of them, Michael or Val, in the bat suit, and the main thing you see about Batman is he just happens to have this very full, sensual mouth.
Yes, that's the most important thing with the bat.
Yeah, and he says, and Val Kilmer has a mouth just like Michael's, very full and very sensual, not a tight-lipped Clint Eastwood kind of mouth. Hell, maybe that's how Val got the role. I don't know.
It's all about the mouth. It's all about the lips.
I mean, a lot of people are like, how's this Robert Pattinson thing going to turn out? You know, what's that going to be like? But I got to say, he's got the lips for it.
He does.
There's no denying that.
Caught a bit of like that Harry Potter movie he was in the other day, and I was just like, I don't know why people would give out about him. He looks like morose, tortured guy. Like, it's just everything about him is like, yeah, of course you can play Bruce Wayne. But then one other thing I just thought I really appreciated in terms of like the passing of the torch between movies here, because apparently one of Pat Hingle's first questions was like, "Oh, you putting that British guy, Michael Gough, is he in the movie as well?" And Joel Schumacher's like, "Yep, both you guys have to be. You're the bookends to this whole franchise." But what he says then is like, "Oh, he met up with Joel Schumacher. Everyone was assuming Michael Keaton was going to play Batman. Then it just kind of fell apart." He's talking about Joel Schumacher as a director. And he says like, "Oh yeah, he communicates well with actors. You can see like a movie like The Client and what he did with that little boy who was not a professional actor. Joel has the ability to communicate with an actor, which is not Tim Burton's forte, at least not with me, because Tim sees in his movies things that I don't see. Tim spends most of his life up in a cloud or somewhere. Oh, he's such a sweet man, but for me, working with Tim is like working with a child, because I have grandchildren, and I don't see what they're seeing either. I felt more secure that I was giving Joel what he wanted and needed from me, and it was never certain with Tim what he wanted or needed. That does stick with what people know of Tim Burton. He seems to be a very
that vibes, yeah.
He's just sort of,
I get that impression. Like, I'm sure he's amazing and he does good work a lot of the time, not always. But he seems like he'd be frustrating to actually try and, like, well, what do you want?
Look at Tim Burton. He's an animator. This guy came from animation. So he would have complete control over like George Lucas with with toys, basically.
I'll tell you what. I personally think that Joel Schumacher should be given a shot at a Marvel film. Like,
oh yeah,
I think he could give us like a Ragnarok level like visual feast. If you give him just like something on the periphery where he can just go wild with the kind of stuff that he was good at,
They could really just like double barrel it and like, we're taking the biggest risk ever. We're getting Joel Schumacher to direct Howard the Duck. And let's just see what happens.
No, actually, I mean, if I was going to pick one, now I don't know if she'd ever get a film, but there's a character called Angela who was... We don't have enough time in this podcast to talk about how she was a character from Spawn and then got caught up with this court case with Neil Gaiman, and now she's connected to the Thor mythos and all this kind of stuff. Not enough time to go into that. But what I will say is, basically her backstory is that she was originally an Asgardian, but she was taken away as a child to be brought up as an angel in this sort of like imagine like Marvel Universe's version of like heaven, basically, where there's this like grand hierarchy. And then when she finds out she was originally an Asgardian, she has to go on this quest for revenge, and she's got this absolutely ridiculous, over-the-top costume, ridiculous over-the-top personality, and it's like this cast of characters that are all sort of like larger than life, slightly goofbally and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, Joel Schumacher would absolutely nail that. He'd drench everything in neon, he'd give everybody ridiculous rubber suits with like any number of appendages, and it would just be, A-class, camp extravaganza.
I was like, well, hey, DC, we're getting freebies off you in the other episodes. Jack, Marvel, now's your time. You can come in and swipe these ideas.
Yep. But
yeah, so like, we got the meeting of Bruce and Gordon. He's talking about like, hasn't slept, hasn't even eaten. Because presumably Gotham City PD, they probably got like still tons of hot dogs that Mayor Borg was accumulating in the freezer back there for like the bicentennial. It's just like
millions of them. They can't shift them.
He refused to eat them. He won't have any goddamn hot dogs.
Yeah, it's not that he can't eat because he's in shock. He just doesn't want to eat these goddamn hot dogs that have been sat there.
I wonder how long it's been though, because he's like, is this the next day or is it like a week later? Like, how long has Dick Grayson been sort of like a nomad here to sort of?
Oh, I thought it was only like maybe 2 days.
Yeah,
like he's been staying at the police station. They've been sort of sorting out. You have to do all kinds of paperwork and crap, don't you?
Yeah, and that was pre pre the real proliferation of the internet, so the police station would at the very least be processing stuff through MS-DOS back then.
Yeah. They probably were, yeah.
We're talking about, like all the earlier in the episode about like, oh yeah, the carnies, the circus folk. Would they not have any loyalty to the Graysons? Like, I always kind of thought that would have been a thing, or like, oh, the circus would have taken him in, but like,
Yeah.
he would have just stayed with them. He would have become, I don't know, like a clown or something. Like he would have been something else. But
Well,
it
they
just
like
seems
to stick together and like help each other out.
it just seems so callous of them that they're just like, because later on, like next week's minutes, Bruce is like, oh, the circus must be halfway to Metropolis by now. It's like they're like, well, sorry, Dick. See ya. They're just like,
You could say, or maybe it was because of the economy and they couldn't afford to keep him on. But on the other hand, this was like the mid-90s, so this was the Clinton years, wasn't it? The economy,
yeah.
the economy was booming at that point. So who knows?
You'd think that if they'd have been clever, they would have kept him around, surely. I mean, carnival folk are the cleverest folk in the world. But why would they let him go? I don't like that. That's very odd. I hadn't thought about
it kind of feels like there should have been like a line of dialogue about, if you're only good at the acrobatics, and one acrobat's no good to me, kid. Something like that,
Yeah. Or they try and take him in and he brushes them off because he doesn't want that anymore. He wants revenge.
You want like a scene of like a mid-90s James Gandolfini coming in a vest and a cigar, like, get out of here, kid.
Don't put ideas inside my head when I know it can never be fulfilled.
And we've talked about, of course, Bruce taking Dick in for some reason, but
We have talked about Bruce sticking Dick in. Yeah, that's a...
sticking Dick in. Yes. Why didn't they just instead have a scene? It would make the whole thing make sense age-wise, right? Where Bruce just offers him a place to crash for a while.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't got anyone. He's got no home. He's not going on with the circus. So he's like, you know what? I've got this big mansion. Come and stay here. You can have like a wing. It's fine. He doesn't have to like adopt him.
It's a thing like I would have, like, because at this point it's just like Bruce is like, oh, he's just, you know, putting out the olive branch because like, oh, he just feels for the kid or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, and I don't know, because you thematically will be examining throughout the rest of it. It's like, well, he doesn't want him to turn out into what Bruce is going to turn out to, even though he does turn into, you know, but he's kind of like, I feel there should have been a scene like we talked about way back when that in the novelization they add in a backstory to Edward Nygma where he sees a picture of Bruce Wayne when he's a kid in the newspaper when Bruce Wayne's parents have been murdered, and he recognizes in him like, oh, that's not a kid in mourning, that's a kid who's angry, like he's filled with rage just like I am and stuff. I feel it should have been a scene with maybe Bruce looking at Dick and just seeing like, oh, this kid's like he needs guidance because he could spiral out. Like he notices the same anger that he has in him. Like he maybe a scene in a police station is literally just watching him through glass or something. He's like, I need, like, if I don't step in, this could turn into another supervillain. This could turn into or just a petty criminal. Like the kid needs a path, and I'm the man to provide it, basically. But
You
this
need
just
a
seems.
teacher.
But it does seem like they've just cut to like, yeah, Bruce Wayne's just taking him in just cause. Like he's just there, like, yeah, I guess I could have this guy sticking around with me for a while. But and then there's a lot of it, and it seems so like I'm surprised Dick isn't more suspicious because it's like the end of this minute, you could almost recut it into like a horror movie trailer where they're really trying to get this guy to stay. It's just like he's invited him out to this gothic mansion, and he's just like, "Oh, you'll be staying upstairs, won't you?" And all this, and it's just like, it's like, "Well, I'll see you." Like, "Oh, excuse me, you think you're going somewhere, do you?" Like this, there's a kind of slight vibe that you could totally make this into like a YouTube trailer of like Bruce Wayne abducting this. I'm gonna say child, this fully grown man.
Right, you are forgetting the critical point that Robin is played by Chris O'Donnell, and Bruce probably just looked and just thought, well, he's got such a beautiful face. I kind of need some kind of legal reason to keep him hanging around. Not anything untoward, just to admire the beautiful face.
The Adonis.
But we've had this throughout the whole season, Jack, that I was unaware of the world's Chris O'Donnell infatuation of the 90s.
Oh yeah,
I've had to explain this to Niall. He's like 90s sexy.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a comic book writer, Andrew Wheeler, currently working for a Canadian comic book company called Chapter House, I think it is, and he also does work for like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff at the moment. And I remember him writing an impassionated thank you to Joel Schumacher on Twitter for giving him Chris O'Donnell for a very formative part of his life. so you know,
Everyone loved him.
yeah.
I feel like I missed out on like a cultural moment where everyone was into Chris
Although
O'Donnell.
I do have a tendency when you've got that kind of like Scottish, Irish, Celtic thing of like or something or Mac something, that I always end up getting the names mixed up with something else. And I was like, make sure it's definitely Chris O'Donnell. You don't go on this podcast and say Chris O'Dowd's beautiful face. Otherwise, you know, people are going to start
I've
asking
almost
questions.
said that 100 times.
Yeah.
Now I just want Chris O'Dowd as Robin, though. It seems like it's...
I mean, it could have spiraled out of control. It could have been out like Danny McBride's beautiful face as Robin. And, you know,
Some people probably think so.
It could have gone anywhere. But
No.
I've had IMDb out and a post-it note with an arrow pointing at Chris O'Donnell to make sure I definitely didn't mess up.
Just put it on your hand. Chris O'Donnell equals the sexy one.
I will also. I did find out earlier this week, though. I was like, I'll better bring this up, just because I randomly came across the fact that in 2013, Comics Alliance voted Nightwing to be the sexiest man in comics.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Huh,
Nightwing. Interestingly enough, Andrew Wheeler, the comic book writer I previously mentioned, editor-in-chief of Comics Alliance. So,
Oh
you know,
my god!
there you go.
Everything's connected.
Oh Jesus! Like that now I feel like we should be approaching this guy because he could really get into like the Chris O'Donnell stuff. I'm like, well, you seem to have quite the infatuation here, guy.
Well, I did run into him at Toronto Comic Con a couple of years back, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to broach a friendship enough that you know I can put in a word. But you know,
Well, we did get the I guess confirmed via Twitter who just put up this massive thread about how much he loved the production design of Batman Forever. It's like, do you want to come on and talk about it? And she's like, sure. So I could literally approach this guy and be like, do you want to just sit and talk about how much you love Chris O'Donnell for like 3 hours? By all means, yes. But I've also been shocked to find out that like one of the most heavily requested minutes of this whole movie, which was given to someone very early on, is the scene of Chris O'Donnell doing like the laundry kung fu, where he's like drying socks by ripping them around his ankles and squeezing them out and stuff.
That is a classic. That is amazing.
If I was approaching someone about Chris O'Donnell, I'd worry that there would be instantly, oh, can I do the bit where he's doing the laundry thing? Like, no, it's already been called. Apparently people really remember that bit. It's been like very special in this movie.
Well, we also get Dick himself being cool. He's being a cool dude. He calls Alfred Al.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also note, though, in production design, before getting into the house, Dick taking in the manor, and then behind him, 2 dog heads. Like one very frightful looking, actually, like really hideous looking dogs. But again, you can't help but feel about like, oh, 2
it's a
guard
Two-Face
dogs.
reference. It's a Two-Face reference.
2
themes.
Two-Faces, yeah, it's in the background, so it's like Two-Face is always in the back of his mind. Or you could take it that they're kind of statues of guard dogs, and aren't Batman and Robin the guard dogs of Gotham in a way? And then so this is an indication of what's about to happen with Dick himself and stuff. And so again, Joel Schumacher. A guy who really had, he's a costume guy, so he has an eye for production detail. So nothing in here is accidental, I'd say. Again, actually, in them going into Wayne Manor, you see the giant thing on the floor. Reminded me, weirdly enough, this can't be a callback because I think we were sort of in our own world back in the time. But remember talking about in the first movie, when Knox and Vicky are going through the armory, and at this point, both of them are all about Batman and trying to hunt Batman and stuff. And there's X's on the floor, and within the armory. And I remember saying like, oh, because this is kind of like X marks the spot. Like they're hunting for the treasure that is Batman. They're standing right on top of it with all these X's around them and stuff, but they can't see it. They can't see the forest for the trees and stuff. And now again, you got this other kind of X thing in the center of the floor, but it's surrounded by red. Red being Robin's color and stuff. And it's like, this is the beginning of him as well. This is his X marks the spot. This is where he belongs and stuff.
Or is it that the people that owned that location were really, really broaching for it to be used as the X Mansion in, the X-Men films that would be cropping up in a couple of times? Maybe they were like, okay, Batman Forever's a dry run, but get as much X paraphernalia all over the place because they're going to be doing one in the early 2000s, and we want that ticket.
Yeah.
They knew.
Let's actually check where they did film the X Mansion to make sure that it's not the same place, because you never know, it could have worked out. Like, and maybe there's Bryan Singer's like, I'm not touching anything that Batman Forever touched. Like, I'm steering as far away from that thing as I possibly can. But yeah, of course, as you're saying, John, they have the greetings between Dick and Alfred. Like, how's it going, Al?
Al, he's not an Al.
No. Although I like it as a thing between this version of Dick Grayson and Alfred that he calls him Al.
This version of Dick would totally call him Al.
Yeah, I just enjoy it as a kind of a bizarre little nickname that just naturally happens between the two of them. Like, I know you'd appreciate, Jack, that like I always liked in Doctor Who they had with the Seventh Doctor and Ace. She always called him Professor for some reason. And it was always a thing. He's always like, "Oh, I'm the Doctor," and she's like, "Oh, sorry, Professor," and all this other stuff. And it's just always like that as a little nickname. But I like the fact that Dick calls him Al.
It's a good job.
Funny.
It's a good job he didn't call him Alf, because that's like that's less cool than Alfred. You know, you've got like Al's like the top of the cool hierarchy, and then you've got Alfred that's kind of like a bit formal but a bit classy, and then you've just got Alf, which is just like, you know. I mean, Alf Garnett, do I need to say anything else, really?
Or a cool alien. Alf.
Listen, Alf was very much an alien. Not sure about the cool part, to be honest with you.
Oh.
I don't know.
That's harsh.
I was thinking maybe it's in the heyday, too, of, Paul Simon's Graceland was out a couple of years back, and Dick just has, like... Him and his dad used to always sing "Call Me Al" and stuff, and now he's here. He's like, now's my moment. I can finally call somebody Al.
That's Alfred's theme tune, isn't it?
Like, Michael Goff at the end is like over the end credits instead of U2. It's Alfred covering "You Can Call Me Al." If you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your long lost pal.
Oh my god, I would have paid anything to hear that.
We can do it, John, as a Patreon episode. We can record a version of "You Can Call Me Al."
Okay, if we get enough Patreon, we'll come up with a figure. If we get enough people, then we will release that. And this is also a good illustration of why I would hate to live in a house like this. They walk into this sort of reception area, I don't know what you want to call it, and the footsteps are echoing like crazy. The noise!
It's just, like, so much of Wayne Manor, and I guess suitably, but so much of it is like a mausoleum, basically. It's
I think it's meant to be, isn't it, as you say, yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's just so much like... It's almost more like a museum to the Waynes, rather than, because Bruce was presumably spending all of his time down in the Batcave. So again, it's just like in 89, where, like, Vicky's like, "Oh, you spend a lot of time in here?" And then he's like, "Oh, sure." "Oh, wait a minute, I don't think I've ever been in this room before." Like, it's because he genuinely hasn't. He's like, "Oh," because this might have been the first time Bruce Wayne's used that front door in about 3 years. Where he's like, "I usually go out through a cave down the back," but
probably, yeah, because you do get the impression from the other films, at least, that he hangs out. Yeah, he's got the Batcave, he's got that one bedroom, and then maybe that like living room area with the TV.
Yeah, that TV.
That's about it.
Glued to that damn thing last movie.
Yeah, and then you don't see it again in this.
It's a wonder. Oh no, he did. He was watching the Harvey Dent. He moved it up to the bedroom. The TV.
Yeah, that was a different TV though, wasn't it?
Like, "Alfred, haul that TV up to the bedroom." Would you? Like, "Oh, no problem, master."
And it's an old building. There's no like elevator. He's carting it up the stairs. This TV.
That's 90s TV. That ain't your flat screen. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like weighs about 2 metric tons. And Alfred having to ring up a whole pulley system to get it up the stairs and stuff. Like Bruce standing by, like, "Oh, careful now," just watching him do it. Then wandering out the front of the house, like, "Alfred, how long have these horse statues been here?" "I bought them when we couldn't get the Pink Floyd things." Like, "Oh, of course, sorry.
It's been years as well.
That was back when I had brown hair, sir." It's like,
You had brown hair?
it's like, "Oh, I just remember you've been a wizened husk, Alfred." I don't recall your younger years. "It was only 2 years ago, sir."
It's all Bruce is doing that he looks this way.
But yeah, of course, they have the introductions, and Dick looks out, sees that Gordon's pulling away, and just has well, I'm out of here.
I did love that, and I love the way that's the end of our minute as well, because it cracked me up even more.
Oh yeah, it's just Val Kilmer's expression of like, "Well," like he shares your emotion of like, "What do you mean?" But yeah, that's the end of the minute. Is there anyone got any notes for this minute in particular? Or?
I just wanted to finish off on as well. I do kind of feel like they noticed the irony in sort of like Batman, or rather Bruce Wayne specifically, being this sort of character of the previous two films. That like if he just wants to, fly off without a care for anybody and just look like the coolest person in the room. He's had like 2 films of doing that, and then all of a sudden he has Dick Grayson pull him on him, and he's like, "I literally don't know what to do now."
Maybe it's really about fatherhood. See, so your offspring sort of replaces you; they become what you wanted to be. So Dick is doing that back to him, and he knows now how wrong he's been over the years to people.
But yeah, at this point of the week, we always ask, of course, the guests about their history with the movie, and their opinions on Batman Forever in general. So. Jack, you have the floor now. Like, do you have any memories about seeing this for the first time, and do you have any particular fondness for the film at all? Or,
I mean, I don't know really. I mean, I always vividly remember, Batman Returns was the first one I saw. That was at a friend's birthday party, and then I remember going to the pictures and seeing Batman and Robin, and I remember, I think Batman '89 was the last one out of the 4 that I ever actually saw. But I don't really have that many memories around Batman Forever. I kind of like, I kind of remember being somewhat confused by Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face, because he just felt like he was a bit too over the top for a Two-Face character. Like that stood out to me, like even back then. Because I had a Two-Face action figure, and it was the animated series one where he just had the nice clean, white on one side, black on the other side suit. And so it was sort of really weird to see them selling action figures of Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face with all these like zebra stripes and all that kind of stuff. But it was also kind of the height of the Jim Carrey mania, and I kind of felt like. And this didn't really have anything to do with his performance as the Riddler. I kind of think it was just coincidental, but it was like I was like a bit of a Jim Carrey nut at the time. So what was it, like 1995? So I would have been, I can't remember, but I would have been quite young, and I would have been like, oh, just anything that Jim Carrey's. And then for some reason after this, I was just like, Jim Carrey's okay. So it was kind of like my just sort of like I just kind of got burned out on just too much Jim Carrey at the time. It was like it's even in a Batman film now, it's like, whereas now I have kind of like I have kind of like a certain degree of respect for Jim Carrey, and I do kind of wish he'd got the chance to do more serious roles. Like he did some, but it's still. He's had a bit of a wraparound kind of career. Like 1 minute is back, and then the next is in some garbage.
Yeah.
I know this isn't a Jim Carrey podcast, but I'm just going to put it out there. My favorite Jim Carrey film, the best one, I think, is Liar Liar. I don't think that can be beat.
Yeah.
I think it's his best performance. I think it's the best quality of gags. I think it's the one that has aged the least bad, because a lot of them haven't aged so well. I won't say any more than that.
Just need the Blu-ray release to be like the cover quote is like, it's the one that's aged the least badly.
Yeah.
Jack
So there's my Liar Liar gets my vote as the best
So you're saying even like in terms of like Eternal Sunshine and all that, you're like, no, forget that. Liar, Liar is still the better movie.
Well, here's a controversial one. I haven't actually seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, so I can't. It's just another one of those ones that just slipped in it, and I just.
I kind of want you now to go watch it and then like follow up this episode by like texting and going, "Liar, Liar is still better."
See, I thought you were going to say you wanted a bit of a redemption story here, and you wanted me to come back on the next batch of podcasts and go, "You were absolutely right. I was wrong. It's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless." So I'll have to see. I'll have to see if I can fit it in between my next appearance with you boys, and we'll take it from there. But overall, yeah, my memories of Batman Forever are just a sort of weird congregation of other stuff that I was paying attention to at the time, rather than the film itself as an overall experience. Yeah, that's all I've got to say about it, really.
I must ask though, because you are a big Batman guy, and I've found a few people on my side so far, but I've felt a little bit at the beginning like my back was against the wall. But like, what's your verdict on the Batmobile in this? Because I love that Batmobile. I think it's really, really great. And John is not on my side of it at all.
No,
but
I think it hits all the right qualities for a Batmobile for me.
Okay, great. So now I'm gonna I'm amassing my my Schumacher mobile army here. But yeah, I'm happy to wrap up this episode if you guys are.
Yeah, we will depart once more. Jack, would you like to remind everyone one last time where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, so all my updates and projects and stuff will be on my website. That's ljackscomicsblog.blogspot.com. That's EL at the start. I'm on Twitter under EL_Jackington. And of the stuff that I've done in the past, I have 2 short story collections in print. One's called Tales of the Modern Realms. That's sort of like a fantasy setting like Middle-earth or Narnia, but what if it was like the Cold War with spies and femme fatales and stuff like that. And I've got one called Foul Cheeses and Space Diseases, and that's kind of like a more broader selection of stories. You got some murder mysteries, you got some comedy, some romance, some horror, so a bit of something for everybody. If you want to check it out, all the details are on there.
Hey, make sure you do that, and come and talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all of these things. And most importantly, go to Patreon, because you can get more content, which is always good. And one last thing then, Jack, I am going to toss a coin. If you get it right, you get to live. If you don't, then we're going to, run you over with a motorbike.
I mean, you could use, in the Doctor Who story, Terror of the Autons, the Master had this device where he could control the plastic around your phone.
Ooh.
So you could control, if you had one of those, you could control the plastic around my headset, the cable, taking it to the computer and strangle me to death with that. So that's something to consider.
That's what's going to happen. I mean, hopefully not. Let's see.
Enjoy the guests are that considerate that they suggest their own methods of death.
As long as it's like if it's a Doctor Who reference, then I'm fine with it.
And it's going to happen anyway, so it might as well go out the way you want. So heads or tails? I'm going to
tails never fails, as they always used to say at school.
Tails. Okay, let's go. Tails, you're all right.
Woo!
You survived to live another day. I didn't cheat that. I did cheat the first week, and then I stopped cheating.
Oh. I'll see you back next season for your verdict on Liar, Liar versus Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I'll get right on it.
That's the only reason. The only reason we want you back. I let you live for that purpose. We need to know. But yes, we will see you all again next week, everybody. We will have a new exciting guest. Ooh, endless exciting guests. It never ends here on Bat Minute.
Next time, a momentous Metropolis mention. There's a vision of vengeance as Dick spins his wheels, while the movie alludes to a certain Man of Steel. This raging rider may not stay without a fight. But will a lack of gas prove to be the grouchy gaucho's kryptonite? Find out next week. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.
Ba-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da.